I'm Scott Holmes.
I'm Matt Metzger, and you're listening to Ground Etc. This season, we are going to be talking all things infield grooming, from routine maintenance to leading a groundskeeping team to serious renovation work. We talk to industry experts of the field, on the field, about the ground, the work, etc. That's right.
That's why we named it that.
Go figure. Oh, goodness. Hey, so today we are talking about drainage on ball fields. And actually, my exposure to drainage happened long before I ever stepped on a ball field. Scott, I know that you grew up in rural Indiana.
I did. Farm communities.
Scott has lots of fun stories about cow pies and cow patties.
Oh, yeah.
We're not going to talk about those.
No, I can entertain. No, we're good.
We don't have enough time for those. But no joke though. My experience with drainage and the importance of water getting away from places you don't want water to be actually started in the cow pasture.
Yeah, sure.
I can remember as a little kid trying to bring the cows in, and keep in mind these cows are like 1,200 pound animals, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting out there at like 5 years old to go like make noises and get the cows to come to the barn.
You're
right?
like a herding dog.
I was looking back now. Yes,
They didn't want to buy an Australian Shepherd. They had Matt.
It's like cheaper to maintain than a sheepdog. Easy to train too. Right. Just throw me bits of food. Oh God. But yeah, so I was the sheepdog in the pasture, bringing in these cattle, and right in front of the barn door, where the grass kind of ends, and then all the cows kind of funnel into the same 8-foot wide space to get into the barn each day. All of those hundreds of animals, we had about 300 cows on the farm, were walking over the same kind of strip of ground. And you can imagine that many 1,200 pound animals times 4 hooves each. Mm-hmm. And you had some nasty, we're talking 7, 8, 10 inch, mud pockets.
Sure.
And so as 5 years old with my rubber boots on that, didn't probably actually fit that well. Yeah. And I'm walking through how many times I would step into one of those mud piles, just thick, deep, gushy mud, and pull my foot right out of my boot.
Yeah.
I'm I would think there'd be a way
to keep it dry.
People have been farming a long time. And even back then, as a little kid, I was cynical enough to think there's got to be a better way to do this. This water shouldn't be here, right? Why should it have to be this muddy? So that's my exposure to drainage.
Water drainage, it's relevant to anywhere there's ground.
Sure.
It doesn't matter what industry, in farming, doesn't matter. Sports, obviously. I'm a golfer. That's my... I grew up, I started playing golf when I was 8, and my dad taught me, and when I was 10, I beat him, and that's the last time we've ever played together. But that's beside the
point. Humble brag.
Well.
And now your son kicks your butt, so it comes full circle.
Maybe it's more digging on my dad than it is about my golf game. But at any rate, moisture is important there. Moisture management is important there. We have some of the world's leading golf course installers who use ABI equipment, and they're anal retentive about drainage and about slope and about grade, because moisture is critical to all aspects of ground maintenance.
Yeah.
And we just did a podcast with Cory about maintenance on ball fields, and very knowledgeable young man.
Yeah.
He gave us a lot of great insight.
Well, and drainage is so crucial too, because it's one of those things that you can't avoid. You can't avoid rain. You can't stop the weather, right?
You can't say, God, we don't want rain.
There are some things you can stop. There's a real fun story I heard just recently from Chuck White talking about somebody may have accidentally forgot to turn off the sprinkler system when the tarp was put on.
During the World Series, if I'm not mistaken. We didn't get that story with him, but I've heard that story.
That'll be a story we get from Chuck later. So sometimes you can avoid water on your ground, but most of us most often cannot avoid rain coming down.
Right.
And if you've got a trick for that, then please leave a comment somehow. Please contact us and let us know.
Or make $1 million. If you could stop the rain.
But you can't stop the weather from coming. So how do you deal with it once it gets?
Right. And it's critical to efficiency when you have maintaining a ball field or a municipality, or you're trying to get a lot of games in.
Yeah.
I've heard some of our contacts through the years say with the right equipment and the right drainage preparation, we can get 20-30% more games in. Well, that's real money.
That's incredible. Yeah.
That's real money, right?
Absolutely.
And that's a lot. It's a big difference when you actually control the moisture content of the ground in the sky. So moisture is very important, and we covered it all with Cory.
Yeah. So if you are in a situation where you're working on ball fields, if you're working on infields and sports surf, and you are curious on how to better manage the water that comes down on top of your soil, take a look. Today, we are talking with our ABI's own Cory Stoneburner. Cory's been here at ABI for the past 2 years now. Cory, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
I have a quick question.
I haven't even introduced him yet.
It doesn't matter.
Here we go. This is how episode 2 is going to go.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to start right here. You see this, Cory?
Oh,
I do.
You see this, Cory?
Yeah.
What's wrong over there?
I'm a youngster, man. I'm working on it. Come on.
So much shade.
Give me some time.
I was going to start way nicer than that, just so you know.
Oh, I've been waiting for this. I've been holding this back.
Oh my God. I'm glad you're here.
No,
Thanks.
we're glad you're here.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
glad you're here.
So Cory, actually, the reason he's around the table, so you played ball your whole life growing up, right?
Yes, yep.
All the way through elementary, all the way through high school. And
Yep.
then after college, you jumped in working for a company that you were installing lawns, doing some landscaping, as well as working on professional ball fields, right?
Yep, exactly.
Right on. And so that's when you came to ABI then. That's one reason you're around the table on the Force team. And so since Cory's been at ABI in the past 2 years, he has been working with groundskeepers and facility operators and owners and working with municipalities and minor league affiliates. And you've been on some pretty impressive fields.
Yeah.
And you've talked with some industry experts and leaders.
100%.
And you're going to share some wisdom with us today, right? You're going to give us all the secrets,
All of
everything you've learned.
All of it. And not to toot my own horn, I actually was on my first NFL stadium this year as well.
What?
So on NFL stadium.
With the Force?
Yes, sir. Yep.
What were you doing?
So basically, it was a real grass football field. They've got multiple people that come in and out of these fields playing on them, so they have to rip out the end zones when one logo's on it to put down new turf. And when you're doing that, you got a big old tractor. It's leaving tire ruts and everything. So we took the Force in there to groom out those areas and get them pretty again for new sod to be laid down.
Oh, perfect.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So how did you get into infield grooming in the first place? I mean, I know you played ball, but what was your initial exposure? Talk us through what that was like and that kind of transition from playing to working on the field.
Sure. So it definitely came from the company that I worked at. When we're doing these renovations and installs, you want to leave the product looking nice when you're all finished up working on whatever field you're working on. And just getting into good practices, learning from, like you said, industry experts out there.
So you were at a company that did both ground preparation, seed preparation, as well as sports turf installations. What made you focus over and really focused on the sports turf instead of going with the ground prep?
Sure. So as you can imagine, you can get away with a lot more on a soil type job working on someone's lawn. When you're working on a ball field, you have to be precise, especially when it comes to laser grading, especially when you're working on drainage projects. So really taking a look at the deeper details when it comes to ball field work was really appealing to me. It's been a lot of fun working with industry leaders out here, learning different practices that people like to use when it comes to ball field grooming and maintenance. So that's really what caught my eye coming into the ball field work.
Obviously, you're a good communicator, and you're passionate, about what you do, and therefore you make a good salesperson for us. But what took you away from the actual installation of the fields into selling equipment? I mean, what made that a transition for you, where you're working with your hands to now working with your knowledge and your voice? What brought you to that point?
Sure. So, I mean, growing up, I worked on a crop farm. That's what I did from about the age of 12 to 21. I've always been working in dirt. Using equipment, driving big pieces of machinery. When I switched, there after college and started working for the sports turf installation company, is a lot of on your hands and knees, tamping boxes, all that kind of stuff, pitchers, mounds. I've got a passion for machinery. That's where my heart lies. That's what I've done my whole life. So the fact that I was able to join ABI and start, selling the Force, demoing the Force around the country, that was huge for me. And that's my passion. That's what I like to do. I like to operate. So not only that, it's a little bit cleaner. Typically, I'm not completely filthy every single day. So both those hand in hand, man. It worked out really well.
So you really had the best of both worlds. You had
Yeah.
the passion for baseball and for sports fields, and a passion for equipment.
Yeah.
Cool.
I played sports, from such a young age, and not only baseball, football, soccer. I've been part of all of it. So the fact that I get to stay in the sports realm is pretty good.
Yeah.
So now, when you were playing ball growing up, were you working in a space where people kind of explained the value of the ground? Like, what was the quality of the fields you were playing on? Did you have anybody in your space that they were talking about how important the field is? Like, when did that first come to light for you, as far as like the understanding, like the ground is so important to the play of the game?
Probably the first time you take a ball to the face, huh? That's what does it. That's what does it. Yeah. So, growing up on Little League fields, you see dandelions or daisies coming up on your infield surface. And as an infielder, you're paying attention to that, grabbing it with your cleats, ripping it out, and all that kind of stuff. So playing on a nicer ball field, you get to focus a lot more on the game. You're not focusing on your external factors. You're not worried about a ball taking a bad hop hitting you in the face. It's huge playing on a nice infield surface. You get to focus completely on the game, and I think you play your best. You're most comfortable.
So you mentioned Little League.
Yeah.
Is there a difference in the infield design, compaction? I mean,
Sure.
I don't even, between Little League, high school, college, semi-pro, pro.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, typically on your Little League fields, you're going to find a steeper slope. They're trying to get that water off the field. You're not going to have guys out there tarping when it's going to rain like you do for MLB stadiums or college fields. So there is definitely a difference going from, a lower level field up into your higher ranks. Not only that, typically you're going to find as you increase in a higher ranking field, there's going to be a higher clay content, which means you have to manage it more. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it. But yeah, big differences when you go from Little League fields up to your higher ranked fields.
Well, and that insight that you just shared too on the being able to focus on the game, right? I mean, that's something that only a player can understand. That when you're out there and you're trying to focus and dial in and do your best work, how can you make the field as distraction free as possible, right? And that's just another added advantage to somebody being really intentional about caring for the field.
Yeah. I mean, lip management, when you're outfield lips, making sure that's not building up where a player might trip over it, going for a pop fly, making sure there's not a bunch of high and low spots in your infield surface alone, that you may trip over running from base to base. Of course, laser grading is a huge thing that we preach here at ABI. Making that field as safe as possible for your players, getting that water to drain off where it needs to go. All that stuff really plays a huge factor.
Well, that kind of leads us into our topic.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that we wanted to talk to you a lot about moisture management. And I mean, for a novice out there, who would have thought that you were watering dirt as often or as little?
Yeah.
I mean, you go to most fields and they've got the sprinkler heads and, and I suppose that works, but man, the expertise and the knowledge that you have to maintain the proper moisture content. Talk to us about moisture management.
Yeah, it's something that I've really come to fruition here. Traveling around the country, I almost look at it like the commandments when it comes to watering your ball field and grooming your ball field. They're hardly greater than one another. Water management is so crucial because you get huge windstorms that come across. If you don't have any moisture in your infield mix there, your clay particles, your sand particles are going to get caught in that wind. It's going to take it out into your outfield. And that's how your lips honestly start to form. More often than not is from wind. Obviously, rain events come along as well that wash material into your grass too.
So again, you've been on a variety of fields, different qualities of play, different calibers of play. When you walk onto a field for the first time and you've got someone who says, hey, I've got some issues, I don't quite know what's going on, maybe a couple ideas here and there, what are some of the most common issues you see when it comes to drainage?
Yeah, the first one right off the top, man, is going to be that lip that forms out there in your outfield.
See, that's interesting because I don't think a lot of people would relate lip issues with drainage issues.
No, I would think it'd be grooming.
Yeah. But you're saying
that's interesting.
But you're saying lips along with that turf there are directly resultant of drainage problems.
Drainage issues, or it could also be grooming practices.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I say there's a 2-foot rule when you're grooming your ball field. You want to stay 2 feet away from your edges. If you throw your rear drag, if you're pulling a steel drag mat or a cocoa mat or broom, and you've got material flying across that edge, you're potentially, if you get too close to that edge, you could be throwing some material out into that grass. And slowly over time, those lips will start to form.
Got it.
There's ways to prevent it. I'm sure we'll get into that later. But yeah, grooming practices are a huge thing into why lips build up.
But it's interesting that moisture plays a part in that too.
Yeah, 100%. And that's one thing I wanted to touch on more. When you're dealing with an infield surface that's got a high clay content, you guys have seen what happens to clay when it sits out in the sun and bakes over a summer. It turns to concrete.
And this table.
Exactly. And it becomes almost like a hydrophobic layer on there where it's not accepting water. Those particles are glued together. And it's shedding water to the outfield, yes, but then you are left with that slimy, nasty top surface clay. If you introduce water to that, it actually gets between those clay particles, breaks them down, and allows movement of water through your infield mix and not just across the top. So water management, you guys, once again, I'm sure you've been to MLB games. They're out there so often watering those ball fields, and that's why. Yeah. An infield's got to be able to take in water as well as shed water.
All right, so, ABI has different divisions, and one of our markets is equestrian. And I know a little bit more about water in a horse arena, but in a horse arena, we talk about the whole profile. With water on an infield, are you just trying to get the top 1/4 inch, or are you trying to get 2 inches? I mean, how much moisture, how much water does it take? And I know there's probably variables that play into that.
Sure.
And locations and seasons. I get all that.
Yeah.
But I mean, are you trying to water just the top quarter inch? Or are you trying to water the whole profile of the soil?
It's really going to depend on that type of soil.
Yeah.
So something with a higher clay content. I mean, I've been out to MLB stadiums the night before, and they will have a half inch to an inch of standing water on their ball field because they want it to soak all the way through that profile. And that's really what creates a smooth, soft surface as well, as breaking those particles down a little bit where they're not like concrete. Something like sand, if you're working in that, you really only need to get the top half inch or so. It's going to dry out quick anyways, but you're just trying to keep dust down. The dust abatement's huge, just like it is in a horse arena. Yeah. Before a game, throw some water down on your sand-based field, and that'll keep that top surface steady.
So what I'm hearing, I don't mean to be taken
Very
over,
good.
but what I'm, because I'm interested.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is that the higher quality, maybe the higher level of play requires a denser material, which actually requires more maintenance.
100%.
Than a little league.
Yep.
I would think it'd be the opposite. I would think you had a little league field with very cheap sand, and you'd have to maintain that a lot more than you would. And I think I'm hearing maybe the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. You're with limited resources when it comes to little leagues. Typically they're nonprofit organizations. You got volunteers coming in taking care of your ball fields. You try to make it as easy as possible for those people to keep up with that kind of surface. And when it comes to clay, the professionals and the higher end ball players are not going to want to play on a concrete surface like that. So you have to be out there watering consistently 3-4 times a day, grooming consistently, nail dragging. Where a sand-based field, there's really not too much maintenance needed. I mean, there definitely still is. But that sand really allows water to flow through it a lot quicker. You don't have to worry about having a correct slope as much to get that water off to your outfield grass.
So now we're talking a lot about maintenance so far. What about in a scenario, and we actually talked about this with Chuck White, where he had the opportunity to come in and help design a couple of fields. Right. And Cory, I know that you've been tapped into to help out with some installs as well, and sometimes you're asked for some advice on how to prep a field, like from ground up. So with keeping drainage in mind, what are some tips you can give folks who say, well, I'm trying to start a field from scratch? How do people keep drainage in mind when they're building a new field?
Sure. I mean, the first big thing when you're working on a project like that is, where do you want the water to go? There's different setups that you can have. You can have drainage systems out in your outfield. You could be using grass as your drainage system to pull water into the roots. You could potentially have stormwater drain systems that you're trying to tap into with your infield drainage as well. So when it comes to the renovation side of things, you really have to base how you're grading that ball field dependent on where do we need the water to get to. Do you have drains on the foul lines area that you need the water to get to, or once again, are you trying to get to the grass? It kind of varies a lot when it comes to the renovation side. On the install side, the company that I work for, we took drainage very seriously, and we would actually install full drainage systems underneath the entire ball field, where you've got drain tile extending from basically the batter's box all the way to your outfield. That's going to be covered in rock and sand. So the whole idea is that once that water starts draining through your soil profile, it's going to hit that rock sand. It's going to go down quicker, hit those drain tiles, and take it out of the ball field. So it's really dependent on budget. Obviously, something like that costs quite a bit of money for the full install.
Sure.
I would say, though, honestly, sometimes the full install work can be a lot easier because you're creating everything. You're not working with anything that's already existing. There's been times on renovation jobs that you run into this drain tile and it's completely filled up with dirt, and you got to rip it all out of there, cut the new tile in again. Some of that stuff can get pretty aggressive at times, but those are the two big things you're looking for on the renovation and installation type jobs.
So, if not everybody has the budget of a major league team or even a collegiate team,
right?
I mean, a lot of municipalities. I mean, if you wanted to categorize ball fields in the country, 80% are municipality on down, right?
100%.
So they don't always have the biggest budgets, and they most often have pre-existing fields. I mean, there's new little leagues being built all the time, but I would think the majority are pre-existing. How do you help a small budget field that's got drainage problems? I mean, how do you tackle that? And again, a lot of variables, but give us your best shot here.
Sure. Yeah. One thing that we always tried to instill in people is if you are limited on money, what we like to do, what we found to be the cheapest route was actually getting that ball field pitched to where your water is going towards your outfield grass. That's the first step, is make sure that that's correct. We then go through and we eliminated any kind of lip that would have formed around that infield surface as well. Then we would take an excavator bucket and we would cut down 2 or 3 feet right along that outfield edge, dig down, and you replace it all with rock, and you create somewhat of a French drain.
Got it.
If you guys know what that is.
Yeah.
You backfill that with gravel and sand, get new sod growing on that, and it actually creates a nice little reservoir on that back end of the ball field to hold water. It's honestly pretty affordable. It doesn't take too much work.
That's great. Good advice.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're a municipality, some of these places are park district even that are working with 10, 20, 30 fields. I mean, I've got a park district that I work out in Virginia. They're taking care of 120 ball fields.
Yeah.
It's unreasonable to think that you're going to hire some outside contractor to come in and laser grade these ball fields perfectly or even install some sort of subsurface drainage. Something like this that I was just describing with your excavator, it's a way more affordable for a place like that to take care of multiple ball fields.
Yeah.
Just way easier on the pocketbook.
Yeah, no kidding.
Makes sense.
Yep.
But there's still grading involved, though.
There is.
You can't do it without a little bit of
There
renovation.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
So let's go to that end of the spectrum then. So we've talked installs, we've talked renovations on some high dollar operations where you can afford to put in kind of a subsurface drainage system. We've talked about kind of a middle ground then of a lower budget kind of French drain situation. But what about the listener who says like, Cory, these are all great ideas, man, but like even that's outside of my pocketbook. Let's say I've got here in town, right? Like a local little league has 8 fields in a complex. It's all volunteer. They do great work. They do great things. Everyone's dedicated. But I mean, there's the little chance they're going to be able to take an excavator out in the field.
Yeah.
We're really talking it's maintenance practices to help with drainage problems. What do you recommend?
Some sort of attachment. I've heard of people using even like I-beams before and take them out in their ball field just to level them off. You need to get water out of the infield surface. And typically your best bet, the easiest bet, is just get it to the grass with whatever equipment you have. Most places have a lawnmower. Even ABI actually sells a nice piece of equipment for lawnmowers as well, or infield grader, that you can actually grab material and level off your ball fields. Just get that water to the grass. That's the biggest thing. Get rid of your highs and low spots that may potentially be holding water. Get that all to your grass. The grass will take it in naturally, and it'll be a much quicker alternative that you can take, and by far the most affordable.
Yeah.
Got it.
So there are a lot of different ways that you can water.
Yeah.
Okay, I've seen sprinklers. I've seen water trailers. I've seen water trucks.
Yeah.
I mean, at municipalities. What are some of the pros and cons on how you water? And I've always wondered if the sprinkler system is actually the very best or not. And it may be. I just don't know.
Yeah, the sprinkler system is nice. Just because you flip it on, it's there. You've got full control. With a water tank, you have to worry about it running out, obviously.
Yeah.
So you're kind of limited on your capacity of water that you can hold. The best, in my opinion, once again, is what you see on most MLB stadiums. They've got a center, what would you want to call it? Center,
like a faucet, like a center output, right?
Yeah, a center output that they can connect into. They can walk the whole field with a 60-foot hose, water everything down. You are visually seeing what you're doing. It's probably the most accurate. Sprinklers, you may get a little bit of overlap if you got them going in the outfield and the infield, but it's super easy at that point. You're just flipping a switch to get those guys going. Water trailer is also a great alternative though as well. ABI makes those fan out the water amazingly out the back, pretty even. And once again, it's quick transport from field to field. With the water trailer, you can get across it pretty quick. So I've heard of people using them. Just put down a quick 1/4 inch of water on your ball field right before the game. Dust abatement, keeps it cleaner for the players.
I could certainly see if you've got a lot of fields, you're not going to have a sprinkler system in 75 fields probably.
Well, and the people to move it around, right?
Right.
I mean, who's going to turn them on and off and move the sprinkler heads and make sure that it's not too much?
So I could see water trailers being a really good option for them.
Yeah. And they're quick.
Yeah. I watch these guys go out there with the hoses, and you got one guy standing behind and one guy holding. It takes them forever. I don't know. It just seems.
Yeah. Which again,
but
makes
accuracy,
sense.
I get it. I get the accuracy.
Yeah.
Accuracy and on high caliber fields, high caliber play where you've got dedicated personnel. But once you switch over into those situations, municipalities, park districts that have 120 fields, like there's a staff for that. So Cory, we definitely want some story time. We want some fun stories, some stories where you said this was a huge success. So give us maybe like a success story of like, hey, this field was in rough shape.
Yeah.
And then it turned around because you were able to help with either some of the drainage issues they were having.
Yeah.
But we want a nightmare story too, man. What's like the worst, what's the worst field you've ever come across?
One pops to my mind immediately on the worst end of things. At the company that I was working for, we had actually traveled out to Dubuque, Iowa, corn country.
Yeah.
Nothing but cornfields out there. And we were doing a full ball field installation. We were literally given a piece of property with one stake. Can you guys guess what that one stake was? My test to you. It was
home plate or pitchers?
The tip of home plate. That's all we were given. From that, you triangulate.
You had to build the whole stadium out of that.
Off one stake is where they said, we want the tip of home plate right here.
No pressure. No pressure.
Was there a specific view?
Yeah, it's cornfields.
Okay.
But like in any direction? Like
they gave us a general direction, yes.
Home plate that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we were given that one stake. Off that, you triangulate your bases depending on the field that you're in, and then you can hit your foul poles as well. That's all based off the tip of home plate, if you guys didn't know that.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
So during this project, we're cutting out the infield and everything, and we get pretty far into the project, and obviously the day's end. We get home that evening, and we get this freak storm over the Mississippi River out there, and we got 4.5 inches of rain in one evening. Now, mind you, we are about 8 hours from home at this point, and we go back to the ball field, and it's just completely soaked. And it was 3 days that we had to stay out there until we could get back on the ball field.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no amount of laser grading will help out 4.5 inches of rain.
Oh, come on.
So it was still cool. I mean, we got to go out and enjoy the Mississippi River
Right.
in the time off, but that was by far one of the worst situations that we ran into on the install side of things.
So that definitely sounds like a nightmare of 4 inches of rain in one night. What about your best renovation story? What about a situation where things, you just kind of knocked it out of the park and you were just thrilled with the result when it got done?
Yeah. There's another one that pops to mind immediately. We were up in northern Michigan. I think it was north of Grand Rapids, actually, so I guess more central. But we were working on this ball field that was struggling with huge water issues. I mean, after a half inch of rain, you couldn't even step in the outfield. It was straight clay. The stuff just was not taking water into it. And they needed some work done. So we went through with our trenching system and actually created drainage systems out in their outfield. And we actually ended up cutting through the infield as well.
Wow, that's major.
Yeah, it was a mess. Cutting through clay, there were huge rocks that we were cutting through as well, trying to get down deep enough for these trenches. It was a mess, but it was so cool. I remember it so vividly. We got the drainage system finished up. Went home for the night. Came out the next day. That night we had connected. I guess I should have said that night we connected the drainage system into their stormwater drainage system.
Yeah.
We came back that next morning, and from our drains, you could literally see water flowing through them into that stormwater drainage. And it was like, nice, the work we're doing is actually
making a difference.
Yeah, like it was immediately providing results for these guys. So that was a pretty cool experience up there in Michigan.
Did you get a good feedback?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Changed how they played their games?
Yeah, and it's cool. The way that we did it, so we would install these drains, we'd cover them up with rock, and then we'd go through and put sand on top. We could go through with strips of sod, lay sod right on top of that sand, and they could play on it almost immediately.
Wow.
That's incredible.
So it's a quick turnaround doing work like that, and it's immediate results, literally immediate.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Yep.
And any fields that, hired you guys to fix, and it was just far more
Oh yeah, that happens
worse
all
than
the time.
what they ever. I mean, they soft sold you.
Yeah.
I mean, they said, "Oh, it's just a little bit of
100%.
grading needs to be done."
Yeah.
And you had to actually tear it up and start over.
You
Got any of
expect
those?
that almost. Yeah. I mean, on the renovation side of things, it's unfortunate. You have to deal with what's already existing when you're doing a renovation. You've got your existing edges that you're trying to match up to, and oftentimes from the bare eye, things don't look that bad. And then when you start getting them with precise equipment that's trying to laser stuff in, you realize that your lips may be a little uneven at spots, and you got to take out soil here, fill in soil here. I've got nothing specific that comes to mind, but definitely if you are someone getting into the renovation type work, expect delays to happen when you're doing that work.
You said something there, and this is not necessarily a plug for our equipment. This is really, I'm interested in your take or your insight on equipment versus manpower. Let me try this a different way.
Yeah.
Certainly, if you had all the budget in the world, you would have a better drainage. But if you don't have all the budget in the world, and you are someone who's passionate about equipment, is there equipment out there? What would you recommend for someone who? And I know you're going to say the Force because that's what you sell. But let's talk about ground components, and let's talk about how you use equipment to actually help somebody who doesn't have a big budget.
Yeah. The huge step, and there are different levels that you can get into, but you got to have something that can grab material and pull it around from point A to point B. They make attachments for tractors, skid steers that do all this. Obviously, my personal favorite's the ABI Force. Yeah. You've got the full hydraulic control of that box blade there at the mid mount. You can grab your high spots, pull them right into your low spots, all while moving. It's very quick and easy to do. Just a little bit of research, and you can find a lot of products out there. And even ABI sells, like I mentioned earlier, the Infield grader that's much more affordable to a smaller budget place like a Little League. It's got a grading blade on it, and you can control it electronically. You can raise and lower it as you're flying around the field. Still do some pretty nice grading work with it.
Yeah. So if you don't have a big budget, equipment sometimes is your best cost.
Yeah.
The way to
and one
spend
thing,
the least and get the best
One thing
results.
I wanted to mention along those same lines is there's a lot of companies out there now doing this kind of work, renovation type work, where they're coming through with different kinds of infield mix and laser grading them out. And what I try to preach when I'm talking to people, you got to protect that investment. Sometimes these people are dropping $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 on a ball field to get it back into shape. Sometimes they're taking out all the infield mix, coming in with brand new stuff. You got to have something, or else you're going to fall right back into the same problems that you're at before.
If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got, right?
Yeah.
So let's help some people out then, Cory. So you've got, you mentioned there are more and more companies these days who are willing to come in, willing to renovate, willing to help kind of bring your ball field back to life.
Yeah.
If somebody listening is responsible for a ball field and they've decided, you know what, like I don't have the budget to do this myself, I'd rather just pay someone to come in and do it for me and bring things back to life. What are some recommendations you would give the head groundskeeper or the facility operator as they're looking for different companies to come in and do the work? What should they look for?
Yeah, I would say the first one when it comes to these kind of companies, and make sure they're credible. You want to make sure they've got good work history and that they're actually doing good work out there. I've heard some horror stories about companies coming in and doing that kind of stuff. But when it comes to budget especially, one thing I preach is that there's almost a direct correlation to a high clay content, like we've already talked about, to more management needed. So if you are looking at getting multiple fields worked on, I would go for something more sand-based where you don't need to water it so often like you do something with clay. Now, if you're taking care of one or two ball fields, if this is like a high school, you can just have your softball and baseball field, you can get away with going with a higher clay content mix. Something like DuraEdge makes 3 different varieties that you can go with. It is going to require more management, but in my opinion, and from what you see on the professional ball fields, you do get some better and more consistent play out of it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you said check the credibility, right? I mean, references matter so much in this industry. And, you know, we've got some great partners, and many of whom are probably going to be on the show here over the next couple of episodes over time. Yeah. But definitely if checking up on the credibility, checking up on the reputation, who have these companies installed for? Who else have they worked with? And don't be afraid to ask for those contacts, right?
Is it critical for a contractor to be able to laser grade? I mean, I know contractors going there, I don't need laser equipment. My eye is so good.
Right.
You know, I mean, is that something that you just have to have if you're doing a renovation?
I believe it's critical, yes. Right. Once again, it kind of falls into that budget when it comes to whoever's paying for the work done. Obviously, if you're using laser grading technology, it's typically going to cost a little bit more. Yes, I think you're going to get a nicer end product, but yeah, it may cost a little bit more to do it. And there are some guys out there that do a pretty nice job by eye, and they're more power to them, but I don't think you can beat, obviously, a laser graded ball field.
Sure.
Yeah. So, you know, you mentioned that obviously a laser graded field is the best. Yeah. Right.
Yep.
And I see a trend, and I know we've been part of this trend, you know, because the 100%. Force, you can laser grade with a Force, right?
Yeah.
But the old way of doing it was to hire, as you have mentioned, an outside crew to come in and laser grade.
Sure.
But I'm seeing a lot more municipalities, and even little leagues. For goodness sakes, churches. I've seen churches buy a laser graded Force, right?
Too.
Is laser grading something that anybody can do? Is it hard? I mean, talk to us about the practicality of a municipal facility actually doing their own laser grading, and what kind of money does that save for them?
Yeah, it's honestly a great question. It's one that's becoming more and more prevalent as we keep diving into this market. There is a little bit of learning curve to laser grading, yes. I'm not going to lie about that. Thankfully, ABI offers up all the training needed. If you were to purchase a Force on the laser grading, we show you the math, everything involved in order for you to take the machine back home and be able to use it. If you've ever gone out to these contractors that we were talking about before, that kind of work when they're coming in and laser grading, it's not cheap. It adds up over time. And like you said, if we're looking at 20, 30 ball fields that we're trying to manage, I mean, these could be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a ball field to come in and have someone laser grade them for you. So
probably yearly.
Sure. Yeah. And that's
should be.
Yeah.
Keep it safe, keep them playable. You bet.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing with the ABI Force is you can come in on your own time, do that kind of work whenever you want. You're not waiting on someone else to come in and do it. And like I just mentioned, the cost savings over time, it's really a no-brainer. And we had one where I worked before. We loved it. It did some great work for us.
And certainly we're going to promote the ABI Force, but
Sure.
there are laser boxes.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen ball fields pull like little laser boxes behind tricycle type bunker rake.
Yeah, the bunker rakes.
So I mean, there's more than one way to laser grade. You don't have to have the ABI Force. We want you to have the ABI Force,
Right.
but you don't have to.
I just like to refer to a bunker rake as a tricycle right there. That's my favorite reference so far.
Sorry. All I could think was 3 wheels look like a tricycle. Sorry.
That's appropriate.
And one thing I wanted to mention, and it's one thing that I when I'm talking to my customers as well, there's always a place for a tractor or a skid loader, something larger when you're doing this kind of renovation or installation type work. I'm never going to say the Force is going to replace an 80 horsepower skid steer. It just doesn't happen. The place that we worked at, we actually had a laser grading blade on the front of our skid steer that would do all that heavy lifting for us. The beautiful thing with the Force, it's nimble, the zero turn ability. You can get into your cutouts. It's a light footprint, so you're decompacting as you're working this ball field as well. That kind of equipment, they work hand in hand so beautifully. Yeah. That's the practice that we did. We took a tractor or a skid steer to every single job site that we were at. You need it.
Yeah.
But the Force, in my opinion, there's no better finishing tool than the Force.
Perfect. That's great, man.
Well, Cory, I appreciate you letting us pick your brain on drainage, pick your brain on some tips for people in making some renovation changes, some grading changes to their field. Remember, for everyone listening, you can either listen via your podcast medium of choice. You can also jump on YouTube, check these episodes out in video format, and stay tuned for future episodes. I'm sure Cory will be back on at some point.
I hope so. This is fun. This is fun. Yeah.
Didn't scare you off at all?
No. First time in front of cameras and
you
in front
did
of
good.
microphones. And
You did
I'm
good.
like,
How was it hearing your voice in your ears? Isn't that weird?
I do it every day. Basically, when you
that's
have those
true.
headphones on at work, you hear your voice all day long.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
Cory.
of course.
Appreciate the time, Cory.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thanks.